In John chapter 11, we find Jesus spending a few months a long way away from Judea in an area called beyond the Jordan, northeast of the Sea of Galilee, where John the Baptist had begun his ministry 3 or 4 years earlier, and where Jesus had been baptized by John the Baptist. Meanwhile, back near Jerusalem, Jesus' friend Lazarus grew sick, and his sisters Mary and Martha sent a message to Jesus telling him, "The one you love is sick." These were close friends, had often provided hospitality to Jesus, were part of the network that knew where Jesus was, even though the Jews did not know. And when Jesus hears the news, he does not immediately act, but waits 2 days, and then says, "Lazarus sleeps, I go to wake him up," by which he meant Lazarus had actually died, and he would raise him from the dead. The disciples are nervous because of the opposition that Jesus had faced back in Judea, but Thomas says, "Let us go, that we may die with him." So, when Jesus came, he found that he had already been in the tomb 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had joined the women around Mary and Martha to comfort them concerning their brother. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went out and met him, but Mary was sitting in the house. Now Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, he will give you." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is to come into the world." When she had said these things, she went away and secretly called Mary, her sister, saying, "The teacher has come and is calling for you." As soon as she heard that, she arose quickly and came to him. Now Jesus had not yet come into the town, but was in the place where Martha had met him. Then the Jews who were with her in the house, and comforting her when they saw that Mary rose up quickly and went out, followed her, saying, "She is going to the tomb to weep there." Then when Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Therefore when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her weeping, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled, and said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, "See how he loved him." And some of them said, "Could not this man who opened the eyes of the blind also have kept this man from dying?" My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we share together verses 17 to 37 from John chapter 11. It would have taken Jesus about 4 days to walk from beyond the Jordan to get back to Bethany. He began the journey after Lazarus had died, and so when he arrived, he found Lazarus had been in the tomb 4 days already. Bethany, we're told, is about 2 miles from Jerusalem, on the eastern flank of the Mount of Olives. Mary and Martha had various friends. They were highly respected and loved, and these people had come to comfort them. What strikes me is that everyone was disappointed that Jesus had not kept Lazarus alive. Their expectation was that Jesus was the Messiah, and that they would be the ones who would enter into the kingdom with Jesus when he took up his kingdom. And so it's great sadness to find that Lazarus is dead, and so he will not be partaking in that kingdom. So the immediate thing that Martha says is, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you." She doesn't ask Jesus to raise Lazarus from the dead, but maybe she's hinting at it because she affirms her trust that if Jesus did ask, even for something so extreme as that, God would give it. And Jesus, knowing her thinking, says, "Your brother will rise again." It's important for us to understand that death is not the end, but there is resurrection promised. Resurrection for the believer will enable us to do those things which previously we were unable to do. Martha is confident in the resurrection. There are many Jews who don't believe in the resurrection. The Pharisees believed, but the Sadducees thought dead is dead. But Jesus knows that beyond the grave is resurrection. So when Martha says, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day," Jesus points her to himself, saying, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die." Do you believe this? Well, this is another extreme statement, but Jesus had previously said that those who believe in him should not taste death. Paul teaches us that a moment in time is coming when the dead in Christ shall rise, and we who are alive and remain shall be caught up in clouds to meet the Lord in the air. So there is a company of people who shall not experience death, but will be immediately translated into the presence of the Lord and into resurrection bodies, from living natural bodies in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. Our mortal body will put on immortality. Our corruptible body will take on incorruption. The same transition that the dead bodies will undertake. Jesus will do this. So there are some who may taste death, who may die in the flesh, but they shall be raised. And there are some who in fact will not even experience death. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, I believe you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is to come into the world. I see in that she's not quite clear on exactly what Jesus is saying, but she affirms her confidence in him. You are the Christ. You are the Son of God. You're the one who is to come. You're the one who has the answers. She goes and sends a secret message to Mary. The teacher is coming and calling for you. Doesn't use the name Jesus, just as the message they sent up to Jesus was, "The one whom you love is sick." Now the message back to Mary was, "The teacher has come and is calling for you." And Mary responds promptly and goes out to where Martha had met Jesus. And many people follow her, thinking maybe she's going to the tomb to weep there. But they find she leads them to Jesus. She doesn't lead them to the place of death. She leads them to the place of life. But Mary's words and thinking are the same as Martha's. "Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died." Martha and Mary are different personalities. And so while Jesus could engage in theological discussion with Martha, his response to Mary, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled, and said, "Where have you laid him?" They said, "Come and see." Jesus wept, and the Jews said, "See how he loved him." Jesus has compassion on Mary, on the crowd that were weeping over the death of this man. And seeing Jesus' compassion and empathy, even the crowd is saying, "This man who opened the eyes of the blind, could he also have kept this man from dying?" The same sentiment. But Jesus will not just keep Lazarus from dying, he will raise him from the dead. "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die." Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is to come into the world.